The town of Black Hollow had always been cold, but this winter was different. The snow fell heavier, the wind howled louder, and an eerie silence settled over the land when night came. The townsfolk whispered of the forest, how it had grown darker, hungrier. People were vanishing, their footprints disappearing in the endless white. It started with old Mr. Gardner. His cabin sat on the edge of the woods, where the trees loomed like skeletal fingers. One morning, his neighbors noticed his chimney had stopped smoking. When Sheriff Dawson knocked on his door, there was no answer. The door creaked open, revealing a house dusted with fresh snow. Inside, no sign of a struggle. No footprints leading in or out. Just an empty chair by the cold fireplace and a steaming cup of untouched tea. Then, a week later, young Emily Hawthorne disappeared while sledding. Her mother swore she had only looked away for a moment. The sled sat abandoned at the bottom of the hill, but Emily was gone. Search parties combed the forest, calling her name until their voices were lost in the wind. But the woods only answered with silence. By December, fear had seeped into every home in Black Hollow. Windows were locked tight, and fires were kept burning all night. Parents warned their children, never step into the snow after dark. But 16-year-old Daniel Barker didn't believe in fairy tales. He scoffed at the old stories of the winter wraith, a spirit that wandered the blizzard, luring people into the cold embrace of the forest. It was just the wind, he told himself. Just the snow playing tricks on people's minds. One night, when the storm had settled into an eerie stillness, Daniel stood by his window, staring at the forest. He wasn't afraid. He would prove to everyone that the stories were nonsense. Wrapping himself in his thickest coat, he slipped outside. The town was deathly quiet, the snow crunching beneath his boots the only sound. He walked toward the forest's edge, his breath curling in the frigid air. The trees stood still, their branches heavy with frost. Then he saw them. Footprints. Small, delicate, and fresh. Emily's footprints. His stomach clenched. He knew it was impossible. She had been missing for weeks. The search parties had found no trace of her. Yet the footprints trailed into the trees, perfectly preserved in the untouched snow. "Emily," he called. His voice was swallowed by the silence. Something shifted in the distance. A shape, pale, almost blending into the snow, moved between the trees. A girl. Emily. Daniel took a step forward, but as he did, the wind picked up, whispering around him like 100 voices. "Come closer." His breath hitched. He hadn't imagined that. The words were carried in the wind, hissing through the trees. Emily stood just beyond the first row of pines. Her dress was thin, her arms bare, but she didn't shiver. She only stared at him with wide, unblinking eyes. "Emily, it's me. Let's go home." She raised a hand and beckoned. The wind howled. The trees groaned. Daniel's feet moved against his will. As he stepped into the woods, the snow around him deepened. It clung to his legs, dragging him down. The whispering grew louder, overlapping voices, urging him forward. He tried to turn back, but the footprints behind him were gone, swallowed by the storm. Panic surged in his chest. "No, wait." Emily's lips parted, and she spoke. But the sound wasn't hers. It was something else. "Stay." Daniel tried to run, but the snow rose around him, creeping up his chest, his arms. The cold burned, seeping into his bones. The last thing he saw was Emily's face, her expression blank, her eyes hollow. And then, behind her, in the swirling white, a figure emerged. Tall. Gaunt. Its face a frozen mask of hunger. The winter wraith had come for him. By morning, Daniel Barker was gone. His footprints ended at the edge of the woods, disappearing into the endless white. And the snow kept falling.